Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. I am your co-host, DJ McCaffrey, alongside the amazing, the fabulous, hair-whipping around Jacob Frail. Jacob, how are we doing this afternoon, this evening, this late evening?
Yeah, we got another late one going right now, DJ, but when the people listen, they're going to enjoy it. I'm doing great. Just working, still coming down from my Zach Bryan,
Zach Ryan
concert
High.
impression. Yeah, that was legitimately a week ago, but yeah, I miss it. I miss it dearly. I miss it so. I want it back so desperately, but no, I'm doing
Well,
great. College football is legitimately around the corner, and I can't be more excited about it.
yeah, Zach Bryan is currently playing about a mile and a half from where I'm currently at. So maybe I should go up to the roof after this and see if I can catch the end of his
You
concert.
could probably definitely hear him.
That's what I'm thinking.
We gotta hurt. Then
Um,
we gotta make this fast so you can listen to Survival. Then let's get
that
it
we
going. Let's
go.
not dilly dally.
So the ACC is the final Power Four conference that we have to talk about, Jacob. Not a ton of hype coming into this season, except for a few teams. I believe there are only four of them ranked in the preseason AP Top 25. In this order, it is Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and NC State, who received votes in the preseason top 25. The two teams I think that we need to talk about right off the top, the big ones coming into the year, Clemson, Florida State. Florida State coming off, should we call it highway robbery? I mean, they got demolished by Georgia, lack of players. They were also going to go into a college football game without their starting quarterback, which we'd seen in the past, but this just felt different. How does Florida State get over that? How does Florida State reload, Jacob, coming into this season?
Yeah, I think I do agree with you. It's complete highway robbery. There's people in the CFP committee room should be ashamed of themselves for making rules up as they go. Shame on
Mm-hmm.
you. You're a disappointment. Anyways, before, besides all that, I think what I really like about Florida State, obviously, you lose Jordan Travis, who, as the years went with him, was a Heisman caliber quarterback up until he got hurt, right?
Right.
Keon Coleman was a stud wide receiver, right? Defensively, they had studs, right? We talked about, I believe, Jermaine Johnson on the edge, and then Jared Verse. And then
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at our favorite guy in the prospect, Braden Fisk, as well,
Mm-hmm.
the D tackle. Um, so how do they reload? I think Mike Norvell has done a great job. How do you replace an amazing talent like Jordan Travis? You go and get DJ Ugalalele. You bring him into the program on his third team away from Oregon State after the Oregon State coach went to Michigan State. And you still have a great running game. They have a great O line. Defensively, they're going to be really solid as always. I think they really added a lot of depth pieces to attribute moving up, where they're going in this program, right? And I just genuinely think it's a great spot to be if you're Florida State. You're at 10. You're not you're not on the outside looking in, right? You're kind of
Right.
in the mix here. The ACC is not exactly like the toughest task in the world at the moment, you
Right.
know? So you're looking at all these different things, and it's an exciting aspect to contribute given the strength of schedule that Florida State's going to get. And obviously, like, their schedule's not hard, not easy either. Like, they have a relatively hard schedule until the final, two games of the year, right?
Right.
Even the final game is the big rivalry game against Florida. And that's no cupcake walk either because everybody gets hyped up. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think Florida State's in a really good position. I love what Mike Novell has done in his tenure, where he
Right.
took over a bad program. They were down in the dumps after Jimbo left. And now look where they're at. They're
Mm-hmm.
competing again. The mix is great. Florida State's rebuilding their stadium right now. They're
Mm-hmm.
redoing some end zones. So it's a great time to be a Seminole. I think is an exciting aspect for them, and I wouldn't be surprised, to have them have a great year because I think DJ, while he's not nearly as mobile as Jordan Travis, I think will be a massive, massive contributor to the offensive side of the ball.
I think you make a couple of great points, Jacob, and I think this year, I mean, it's easy to say that Mike Norvell is as good of a coach as he has been, to build this program up, right? I think this is where we're going to see the type of head coach that he is. I think starting this season, you're going to see him either take a step up and he is going to be in a new category of coaches in college football, or he's going to take a step back, right? He's built this program up. He's got the recruits he needed. He performed at the highest level that he possibly could, given what he built at this school. And now it's gone. How do you redo it? What do you do next? Right. And I think this is his make or break as a coach, as far as I know, crazy, right? He worked really hard to get where he needed to get to this point, right? And that it's like the rug just got snatched right out from underneath him because, right, his people left, right? He built this whole program up, and now he's going to rely on everybody that was waiting to take that step forward. I think now we are going to decide if, at least in my books, it's going to decide the type of coach or the pedestal that we put him on as far as tiers of coaches. I think if he comes out and he annihilates the ACC like he did next year, I think you could put him at the top with some other coaches, these top of the top coaches, the Ryan Days, the Dabo Sweeneys, and oh my gosh, head coach Georgia. He's fading in my head right now.
Well, who is this again? What coach?
Head coach Georgia.
Dude, Kirby Smart.
Kirby Smart. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just was just slipping. I think if Mike Norvell comes out and he repeats from last year, I think we could put him in that tier. Maybe
Yeah,
that's a bold statement because he hasn't won anything yet. But I think as far as the coaching mindset, um, I would feel comfortable putting him there. And he would probably be the first in line for a couple of big jobs that come forward, which would be interesting.
yeah. I think with Florida State, I think we've been over it. I think they're in a great spot. I think there's a lot of question marks. I don't think Mike Norvell's on the hot seat. I thought he was on the hot
No.
seat last year. I thought he was on the way out, but they had a great year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see. Fun fact, two fun facts for you.
Ooh.
Three, actually. I'm gonna give you three.
Oh.
Kept getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fun fact, within the last 11 seasons, Clemson or Florida State have won the ACC except for 1 year.
Hold on. What year was it?
It didn't say what year. It said since 2011, I think.
It was Pitt.
Potential with the Kenny Pickett year.
Yep, that's what I'm going with.
They have won the league every year, but one since 2011. Another one, the transfers, the starters, 51% of them were transfers for Florida State last year. Starters.
Okay.
And Clemson had 0% of starters from transfer portals.
Okay.
So those are my three fun facts. I want to talk a little bit about Clemson here. I don't know why everybody, we talked about the AP poll in the previous podcast for the Big 12, and Clemson's ranked 14th. Don't
Mm-hmm.
know how, don't know why. We're in what, year 3 of the Cade Klubnik experiment still is what it feels like,
Right.
right? Dabble got no people in the transfer portal.
And he
I
did,
mean,
and he's not going to.
he recruits great freshmen. I mean, he's bringing in Brian Wisco, 6'2", 170 freshman wide receiver. one of, and Cade Klubnik has said he thinks he's going to be a difference maker for the team, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you got Phil Maffa back at running back, and it's interesting to me that we're still putting these guys where they need that they're so high up here. I just don't see Clemson like that. I do think that the top two teams in the ACC, I don't think it's Clemson's in that conversation. I truly don't. I think the echelon of teams is truly Florida State's in a category of its own right now. And then to me, I view NC State currently Louisville's building a heck of a program out there right now. Clemson and North Carolina kind of all in the same bubble, right? I don't really view them all crazy. Oh, I forgot about Miami as well, like in that ace of spade. So I I think what is always going to hurt Clemson is what do you use the transfer portal for, right? It's for when your freshmen are not ready yet to be put in, right? You're alleviating your weaknesses immediately, right? For
Mm-hmm.
Florida State, what was their immediate weakness? Quarterback. Quarterback to bring it in, not ready yet. Bring in DJ, let your guy get another year, right? The whole nine
Mm-hmm.
yards, correct?
Right.
Clemson doesn't do that. They're in the third year of the K Klubnik experiment. And ever since that Trevor Lawrence kind of era of Clemson and that the golden years of Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence, I just don't see, I personally don't see where they are going to be anymore. I don't see it. I've never really seen it for them this year. Personally, I think Clemson is just going to do what they did last year. I think they had like 3 or 4 losses, I think,
It was
last
four
year.
four losses last year.
4 losses, and
Duke, Florida
you
State,
got
Miami, and NC State.
and you got to kick the season off against Georgia this go around, and then you got to take on App State, which is not an easy at a group of 5 team, right? They could be one of the best group of 5 teams out there, right? App State's no cupcake. We saw the trouble they gave North Carolina, right? South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina still going to be tough. Pitt, Louisville, tough teams. NC State, Florida State, like I personally don't see where they get, you know, the wins this year. If Louisville does what they're supposed to and make that next leap, you're losing to Georgia, you're losing to Florida State, and you're losing to Louisville, and then a toss up between like, you know, NC State or Virginia Tech. And you got to go to Virginia Tech.
Sandman.
Sandman. So like when you start thinking about it like that and the lack of depth with veteran experience that Clemson has, and some of these programs have done that now. Well, it's a long season, but I just don't buy the Clemson hype at them at 14, and I personally don't see them being the second team out of the ACC to potentially vie for the college football playoffs.
I think that's a pretty hot take. If I do say so myself, and I'm not a Clemson fan. I don't like Dabo Sweeney. But by golly, the guy can coach. I mean, he did have 4 losses last year. The K Klubnik experiment, or we'll call it the rite of passage, the way that Dabo is doing it is um it has not worked. But there has got to be something to be said about, who Clemson recruits and the coaching that does come out of all of this. I mean, he won his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games pretty well by beating a ranked Notre Dame team, a ranked North Carolina team. And it doesn't look like Kentucky
But
was
like
ranked
neither,
at the
but like
time of their
neither of
bowl
those,
game.
but like neither of those, like Notre Dame, we didn't think was all that, and we didn't really think UNC was all that. It's just like it's like if we're like I don't know. It's just like they lose some bad games and they win some games they probably shouldn't win. That's the Clemson experience in a nutshell. You started the season off 2-2 within the first 4 weeks. Losses to Duke and Florida State.
Yeah, but you got to think the teams that they lost to last year are also ranked this year coming into the season. Three of the four of them of their losses last year are ranked coming into this year. Like I said, NC State, Miami, and Florida State they lost to last year. They also lost to Duke. Duke is the only team that they lost to last year that is not currently ranked. So they were doing some. We didn't see something in those teams last year that that we foresaw Clemson losing to them, right? I mean, any other year you would have thought, yeah, Clemson's going to beat Miami, and yeah, Clemson's going to beat NC State, but something happened, and maybe there's just a little bit more hype behind a team like Miami, who is 7-6 last year. Do they deserve to be ranked, especially as high as they are? What are they, 19 for what? Come on now, for what? NC State. Let's just take a quick gander at what their record was last year. Just while I'm right here, 9-4, decent, same record as Clemson. Do they deserve to be as far behind Clemson? I don't know, but I think this Clemson team does a good job at developing a lot of their players. I mean, our biggest question mark the last couple of years hasn't been the wide receiver position, the running back position, the defense, right? Maybe the secondary has been a question mark, but as far as defensive line and their front seven on the defensive side, they're a solid team. So I don't think Clemson is ranked too high, or maybe they're ranked a little too high. Maybe I'd put them back at like the 17, but for what they are to start the season, like I don't know. They have the opportunity to win big games, and I don't think their schedule this year is all that difficult, right? Say a loss to Georgia, and then maybe they lose to NC State, but excuse me. And then they lose to Florida State because they travel to Tallahassee for that game. If they get past NC State, you're still looking at a 10-2 record. Because
They're they're de-
Louisville,
they're definitely going to lose to the likes of either Louisville, Virginia Tech, or NC State. One of them.
I I don't know. I would find it hard to believe that they would lose like that
NC
two
State
games
is a
apart.
legit
I'm
program.
not I'm not saying that they're not a legit program. I'm just saying
You drive you, you
it
just
was
drive you drive me up a wall sometimes because it's like you see this Clemson, like you can't look at the Clemson of the past. You got to take Clemson for what they are, and they're just not good. They're just
but
not. They
they're
have
just they're
talent.
not just
They have
bad
talent
though.
that's going to be good in 2-3 years.
If I'm a
They're,
betting man, I'm not betting against Clemson versus NC State. I'm not.
I mean,
I'm
I'll
not
take.
taking I'm not taking the bet. I'm saying it's a coin toss game. If they win it, I am a little bit more surprised that NC State won than if Clemson turned around and won. I'm like, if Clemson wins that game, Clemson should win that game. They should. I'm not surprised if they come out of that win.
Yeah,
But NC State beats Clemson, you're like, oh my gosh, they did it. They beat Clemson 2 years in a row.
yeah.
And that's just what I'm saying is I think Florida State and Georgia are losses. Those are guaranteed losses. The ceiling for Clemson this year is 10-2. But I think they could move throughout the rest of this ACC schedule. Because I think if you come out of Georgia, if they lose to Georgia, I think Dabo's got to have their crap rolling. I would think. I would hope. It's not as daunting as a schedule as it was last year, or what ended up being more of a daunting schedule for Clemson than we anticipated.
Let's talk a little bit about Miami here. You alluded to it. They're in, I think, year 3 of the Cristobal era. Cristobal at his current tenure is, I believe, 13-12 at Miami. They have Cam Ward, the highly sought after transfer from Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Their starting quarterback. You kick off the season, I believe, at Florida
Mm-hmm.
in the Swamp, probably a night game.
Yep.
And the question now becomes, what more does it need to take for Miami to be back, right? To be competitive again? Because like they haven't sniffed the ACC in God knows when, and
Right.
be relevant to compete for a conference title, right? The likes of Pitt and other teams have snuck their way in there, right? So like for me, I look at Mario Cristobal, I'm like, this is it, man. Like you have a football team, which
This
is
is year
crazy
3,
because
by the way.
year 3 of Cristobal, yeah. Like you have an NIL program that's legit. You have a great campus in Coral Gables, right? You have a great. The problem is like you have a great stadium, but it's like nobody wants to go to to Hard Rock to watch you play.
Right.
You don't have a dedicated home fan base for a football game, right?
Right.
And reality is right now is you're 13 and 12. You've been mediocre the whole way. So when
Dude,
is it time to like get out of this sense of mediocrity?
it's 12 and 13, by the way.
12 and 13. Gave him a
Almost
little
had it.
I gave him a little too much credit. But it's like
Um,
you look at Miami, right? And last year, you know, it was a it was an interesting year, right?
to say the least.
To say the least. And they went
7-6.
7-7 with a loss to Rutgers in a bowl game.
Yep.
Like
Seven
I
and
read
six
you,
with a
I
loss.
like I read you the schedule from last year. They beat Texas A&M, right? Who was ranked. Then they proceeded to take care of their cupcakes, but then they lost and ranked North Carolina. They beat Clemson, right? That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about here. Double OT Clemson. Then they lose to NC State, lose to Florida State, lose to Louisville, number 10 Louisville at the time. Then
Mm-hmm.
they beat Boston College, lose to Rutgers. So it's just this up and down roller coaster that's similar to Clemson. But
Mm-hmm.
Clemson has a little bit more going for them because Dabo's one of the best recruiters in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Cristobal left Oregon to take over this team to go 13 and 12. Time is now 12 and 13. 13 and 12 just rolls off the tongue a lot better. But
Yeah, I
like
bet he
BJ,
wishes he was 12 and
BJ, talk
13.
to me about what you
13.
think Miami is doing and where do you think Miami could be at as a ceiling and a floor for this upcoming season?
Jacob, execution, right? Executing the ball games in front of them. I mean, like you alluded to, and I alluded to earlier, they lost their big games last year, right? Lost to NC State by 14, lost to Florida State at Florida State by 7. I think that's a tip of the cap, right? Big loss to against Louisville by 7 points, right? Lost to North Carolina in North Carolina by 10, and a just horrible execution and play calling by Cristobal to lose to Georgia Tech last year. So
Oh my God, I forgot about
should
that. Oh
be
my God.
should be uh 13 and 12, right? Or 500, whatever you want. And but a couple different plays go their way in any of these ball games, and you're looking at a new at a different you're looking at a different team. This year, Jacob, I'm gonna hit you, right? Get ready. At Florida.
Um,
Go.
Loss,
Oh, all right. Versus FAMU.
win,
Versus Ball.
win.
Or at USF.
Ooh, I'm gonna give them a win there.
Thank you. Goodness gracious. Against Virginia Tech.
Ooh, win. I don't think Virginia Tech's gonna be ready by then.
Okay. At Cal.
Win,
At Louisville.
loss,
Against Florida State, loss.
loss.
Versus Duke.
I'm gonna give them a loss there.
Interesting. against a new Duke team. Riley Leonard lost, head coach gone.
Yeah, I don't
Woo.
know. Call
All
me
right,
crazy.
all right, all right, all right, all right. Versus Wake
You forgot Georgia Tech.
at Georgia Tech.
Win.
Versus Wake.
Ooh, win.
Thank you. At Syracuse.
Kyle McCord.
eight
I'll give him a win there. So we're looking at an 8-4.
and I think they have a chance to beat Florida. And I think that they
The only reason why I don't give him that game against Florida is because it's at Florida.
I oh, it's a 3:30 game.
Yeah.
I
Prime,
might
like
be able to make that.
DJ, you got to give us 10.
Yeah, I gotta
TikTok, you
give
got
you.
to give us
Yeah,
the vlog.
I got you. I didn't know it was at 3:30. I forgot that they're on ESPN now, not CBS.
Well, that's also not a
But
SEC game.
right, that's what I'm saying. It would be an SEC game. Florida is SEC.
But you know what I mean? Like SEC against SEC.
Right, fair. But it doesn't have to be network. But
Yeah.
ESPN and SEC have the regardless. I think they have a chance to beat Florida. Not because Florida's the only reason they would lose to Florida is because they're at home for game one. But it's a 3:30 game. That's wild. But Louisville has to come back a different team that they were when they ended the season last year, right? I think they dealt with some injuries just like Florida State did, but that was the most miserable game I've ever had to watch in my entire life. But outside of Florida State, they have again, ACC teams and the opponents ahead of them. They avoid Clemson, they avoid NC State, they avoid North Carolina. They have a direct path if they execute their plan to walk out of this season 11-1. They have the schedule to do it. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be. They have the schedule to do it, and I think that they should be favored, rightfully so, in a majority of these games. So the ceiling, I'm putting at 10-2. I'm putting 10-2 as the ceiling for
The current spread for Florida Miami is Miami 2.5 point favorites.
that's what I'm saying. And they're going to be a good team. The recruits that they brought in, the quarterback situation, it's going to be better for Miami. They are not going to be a 7-6 team, right? They don't have the opponents that they did last year to beat. I mean, FAMU, Ball, USF. Come on, man. And then you're playing the bottom feeder of the Pac-12 last year in Cal. I mean, Louisville's going to be a hard place to play, but I bet they lost the majority of their players. I don't really know the status of Louisville to make that assumption for their upcoming season. But and then Duke, I don't trust Duke to be half as good as they were last year, losing their head coach and losing their starting quarterback. Georgia Tech seems to be a team that's been making a lot of noise. I think Miami is probably going to lose one of just that random game. And I think at Georgia Tech could be the one. I could also see it being Syracuse the end of the year. But Miami, Miami looks to be like a team that has a very good shot to win the ACC title and at least be in the game, right? If Clemson fails to be as what I think they could be, they could go easily fall to 10-2, 9-3, and Miami could again just by the schedule that they have in front of them fall into the 2 seed, and they have the chance to make even the playoffs. At this point, you're talking Miami has a real chance to make the playoffs, being a 10-2, or excuse me, an 11-2 team with 2 losses to Florida State, who I'm picking to win the ACC. Call me crazy, but the path is there. The coaching is there. The talent is there. Execution.
Couldn't have said it better, Dita. Let's touch upon two other top contenders, and then we'll kind of leave it at that because the rest of the ACC is not anything to write home about, even though they have the new additions of Cal, Stanford, and SMU out of nowhere. Um, which we forgot to mention at the latter part.
Yes, we did.
Anyways, I want to talk a little bit about these two teams, right? Louisville
Mm-hmm.
and UNC. Mac Brown in another year post Drake May. Max Johnson is the quarterback, right? Coming in to UNC. And in Louisville, who had a phenomenal breakout year last year, kind of on the outside looking in a little bit in terms of where they're currently ranked in the preseason top 25. But kind of talk to me a little bit about what you're feeling from these two teams and how big of a dark horse do you think they could be?
Excuse me, just clarifying, you said UNC, correct?
I did say UNC. I
Okay.
forgot to mention NC State as one of these teams, but we can come back to them after we talk about these two.
Okay, so the Tar Heels, they're an interesting squad for me because they're not powerhouses even in their own conference, right? They always become a topic of conversation, and then they seem to fall through the weeds as the season goes on, right? They opened up as the 21 seed last year, beat uh their southern rival in South Carolina, right? They beat App State, they beat Minnesota, they beat three different conferences in their first 3 weeks. Um, and they got as far up to as to number 10 versus losing to the random Virginia, right? And then they turn around the following week and then they lose to Georgia Tech. And I mean, you're talking about a top 3 draft pick in Drake May as your quarterback, and you're losing these nonsense games against bottom feeders again in your own conference. And then, this non-major win, they beat a Duke team that was pretty good. And then they have 3 straight losses to end the year to Clemson, NC State, in West Virginia. Lost to Clemson by 11, NC State by 19, and lost to Virginia by 20, which I just I can't comprehend. I mean, I don't believe they had Drake May playing in their bowl game. To my recollection, I don't believe he did. But I see North Carolina, bless you. I see North Carolina being the same North Carolina team that just happens to come by year in and year out, right? The year before, right? Who was their quarterback before Drake May? He's
Sam
Sam
Howell.
Sam Howell, right? Highly touted quarterback going into the NFL draft, right? A lot of eyes on him. You know, they went 9-5 the prior year, and then again 6-7 the year before that, and then 8-4 the year before that. And you're talking about a few again good quarterbacks, highly quarterbacks that were picked up to do something in the NFL draft, right? And these teams, Mac Brown, I'm just not sure how far he's going to get you these days. I think he's a good head coach. The development seems to be there by these North Carolina players, right? You see them being taken. I just don't know why they're not executing in college. I don't think NC or UNC has the power, the coaching to make it very far. Um, let's see what their schedule this year looks like. I don't know if you have it out in front or here. It's right here for me. Um, their schedule looks favorable. Um, a couple of tough opponents. They play in Minnesota to open up the season. I think that game right there will probably be a good determiner of how the rest of their season is going to play out. I mean, PJ Fleck has his own work cut out for him in Minnesota, but then you have Charlotte. Is that North Carolina?
Central.
Charlotte Central. Um, and then JMU. They travel to Duke, and then they host Pitt and Georgia Tech. Those could be a couple games that I could see them losing right there in the middle. Virginia, I would hope they would win, but I don't know why Virginia seems to be like UNC Kryptonite. I don't know if that's in my head or not, but then they travel to Florida State, and then they end the season, their last two games with Boston College and NC State, which, could cause them some trouble at the end of the year, especially if their year isn't as good as they hope, you know. I think for the sake of schedule, they have the opportunity to do well, but you know, NC State just doesn't seem like a team that seems very consistent. And they just tend to have their better years than others. They're kind of like a Michigan State of sorts, right? Before, but like a couple years after 2015, where they can go 9-3, and then they go 7-6. It just tends to be the vibe I get from UNC, where they're never truly a powerhouse in their conference. They just have better years than others, and so I don't really see them doing anything else. And what was the other team that you mentioned?
Well, I'll kind of interject here,
Go for it.
and give you a little break, but with UNC, they're bringing in Max Johnson, the Texas A&M transfer, right? At quarterback, defense has never been Mac Brown's strong suit. They're going to sling the ball around. They're going to have a dynamic offense. Hampton's a great running back to have in that offense as well. Again, I think for them, I think they're kind of an outside dark horse. If they want to make a run, they can make a run with some big wins, right? I think they have the schedule to get those wins, especially if you're looking at 11-1 and you take down the only losses to Florida State. Like that could be something that can cause some noise for the CFP, but I think that's really it for UNC. I think they're a very safe team. I think again, they're nothing more than a dark horse, even though I'm repping my UNC shirt, but that's for UNC basketball people. Don't get it twisted. It's just one of those things where it's just I think Mac Brown. I don't know. Like I know why he came back to coaching, but I think it's time for him to leave coaching again. I think it's the sport's passing him a little too far. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, he's not coaching a good defense. The defense has not been solid. Jumping into Louisville, came out of nowhere with a big win against Notre Dame, inched their way up. They get it, they get into that top 10 ranking. Then they had a bad loss against Kentucky and a bad loss against Pitt. Plus, you add in a Florida State loss in the championship game. LSU had all the makings of a Cinderella run to the CFP, and they just couldn't get the job done. And that's okay. It's college football's hard. I'm not worried about the defense. Brome knows how to coach a defense. That defense is still going to be very, very good. The question is at quarterback with, I believe, Texas Tech transfer Tyler Shaw is how you maybe pronounce it. It's Shough, I guess. I don't know.
Tyler
Shough. Tell us, let us know. But he's a real question mark because he's never played a full healthy season of college football, and this is his 6th year of college football. So huge question mark at quarterback. And I think that's honestly the story of the ACC right now is there's so many question marks at quarterback for all these teams. I think Louisville, again, is a dark horse looking at it as well. And, I'll let you interject with some Louisville stuff before we move on to, NC State. But I think it's one of those things where they're a dark horse on the outside looking in. I'm surprised they're not ranked over like a team like Iowa. But hey, like I guess it is what it is, but they got some chances to get some big wins again with, I believe, like Florida State, I believe, is on the docket.
No Florida State this year. They've got They travel
Do they have
to
Notre
Notre
Dame?
Dame. They travel, or they host Miami, and then they travel to Clemson.
The 3 road games is something I'm gonna keep an eye on because it's at BC, at Clemson, and at Stanford, and that's
Mhm.
a lot of flying.
And at Notre Dame. I
Yeah,
guess that's not far though.
no, it's far. It's it's not that far, but still.
Kentucky
Um,
to Indiana.
yeah, I forgot. I thought we were talking about Miami for a second, but yeah, I think Louisville has an opportunity again to be a dark horse, but I'm not stacking my chips and not pushing in the deck. Like
Right.
I think they're going to be a very safe, comfortable, probably best case scenario. We're looking at 9-3, 8-4
Mhm.
is what I'm thinking for them.
Yeah, I'll give you
Depends on how Kentucky looks.
yeah, I'll give you my brief rundown. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, a very Cinderella-like story last year. And a couple of heartbreaking losses. I mean, losses to Pitt at Pitt and losses to Kentucky at home. And the Kentucky game was a 7-point loss. So, unfortunately, those made or break their season. They obviously ended the season with a loss to Florida State in the ACC championship game, and a loss to USC in the Holiday Bowl. The defense for Louisville, if they can get it back, I think would be very helpful. They looked a little spotty at times. Really held their own against a lacking Florida State team. Um, but an upgrade on defense could really do them well. On the offensive side of the ball, right? I don't know much about this Texas Tech transfer. Generally, you kind of pick up guys from the portal that fit your scheme, right? Um, I think that would play in very well if he comes out and he shows out as well. I think they've got the players on the outside. I think they've got the run game or the running backs to do well. The offensive line looked like it held up pretty well in the ACC championship game against Florida State. I don't remember Verse, and I can't think of the other guy's name at the moment. Verse and
Fisk.
yes, Verse and Fisk getting to the quarterback very much in that game. Um, but again, the offensive side of the ball, Louisville needs to move. They came away with big wins last year, though. I mean, they beat Indiana at a neutral site. They beat NC State in North Carolina. They beat Notre Dame in Louisville. They beat Duke at home when they were hot. When they were hot. I think that's a big factor right there. Beat Virginia Tech, beat Virginia, went to Miami and beat Miami. And then, like I said, they ended the season on that unfortunate note. But they have the makings of a team that could make some noise. Their schedule this year, though, tends to be a little bit more difficult. I mean, like I said, there's been some hype around Georgia Tech. Not sure what it is. Maybe it just sounds again outside noise. That they're building something pretty good over there. You know, the Notre Dame game is going to be important. Um, the Miami game is going to be important. Um, but if you handle business like you did last year, right? Why not? Why not Louisville? Think I think you're right on the head with the best case scenario, um, 9-3, right? But I mean, hey, they beat Miami last year. They beat Notre Dame last year. They got a couple big games in there, but why couldn't they go 11-1 or 10-2, right? Just like they did last year before the ACC championship game. Um, and that's my biggest thing for them because it was Pitt Pitt was the oddball. I don't think they play Pitt this year.
No, they
No,
do.
Pitt,
Louisville, they do.
they do not. Oh yeah, they do. They end the year with Pitt. So the competition that you lost to last year, you play at the end of the year. So there's going to be a lot of momentum going into those games. But I mean, if you can get through the gauntlet beforehand, why not? Why not Louisville, Jacob? Why not Louisville?
Yeah, I I want to kind of touch on one more final team,
Mm-hmm.
lightly, and that is the NC State Wolfpack.
The
Right.
Wolfpack, baby.
Grayson McCall's at quarterback. Always been a very, very good defensive team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'll tell you right now, this team has a very, very favorable-ish schedule. The back half, once they get through week 4, they have the ceiling for them legitimately could be 11-1.
Well, I'm trying to pull it up here, but I like the
Let
sound of
me
that,
no no
Jacob.
no no no. Let me play the game with you now.
All
You don't
right.
get the
Uh,
Western Kentucky Western Carolina at home.
win.
Tennessee at home.
Ooh. They play like the Volunteers in North Carolina.
The Volunteers are in Raleigh.
Ooh. Can I know who Tennessee plays game one?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna go loss.
Louisiana Tech at
Win.
in North Carolina.
Win.
At Clemson.
Loss. Mm.
Again, home against Northern Illinois.
Win.
Home against Wake Forest.
Win.
Home against Syracuse.
Win.
At Cal.
Win.
Home against Stanford.
Win.
Home against Duke.
Win.
At Georgia Tech.
Ooh, that's gonna be a tough one, but I don't think they pulled that one out.
At UNC.
Win.
10-2. That's very legit. And if you beat the rest of them and you only have close losses, that's why I say the ceiling is 11-1.
I believe you.
So
Yeah,
I like
Tennessee
Tech.
plays Chattanooga first.
I like NC State. I like the way they are. I like the way they're playing. I like their schedule,
Mm-hmm.
especially to be a dark horse. Um, yeah. Do you have anything you want to say on the NC State Wolfpack?
I think they finished up the year really well with a win over Kansas State. I believe it was it in the Orange Bowl or was there another game? There was a game. There may have been two games played at I'm sorry, the Citrus Bowl because it was Tennessee and Iowa in the Citrus Bowl, and then there was another game played in Orlando. I remember doing media coverage for them. Um, but nonetheless, oh, excuse me, I have it right here. The Pop Tarts Bowl. Yes, of course, the famous Pop
Yes.
Tarts Bowl.
The
Um,
best bowl.
and I'm sorry, they lost to Kansas State to end the season. Um, but I think they had a very good year last year. They lost to Duke in the hype of Duke. Lost to Louisville, who ended up winning or going to the ACC championship game, and they lost to Notre Dame, which is a tough team to play, especially as the second game of the season. And I think that's kind of what they're going to face coming into this year is, having one game to prep before your first juggernaut of the year is tough. It's really tough. And so, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to have enough time before going against Tennessee to be prepared. Um, I think when the Clemson game comes around, I think that is going to be a game that I highlight, you know, what happens versus Tennessee. Say you lose to Tennessee, what happens then? Right? How do you battle back? You've got a game to go beat up on somebody in Louisiana Tech, and then you're ready, head down, ready for Clemson. I'm saying Death Valley, hard place to play. It's probably going to be a day game too. It's going to be hot. They're going to be in orange, and it's going to be hype when they come out to the field. But say you pull out a win there, if you can get past Clemson in South Carolina, big, big going all the way through the rest of your season. And that's just kind of what I've got for them at the moment. Um, who is your ACC championship game over there, Jacob?
Before I do that, I want to touch upon one guy,
Okay,
one team.
one guy, one team
Bill O'Brien at
at
Boston
Boston
College,
College.
year one. DJ, I'm just gonna read you the first.
Am I going win-loss right here?
No, I'm just giving you the first 4 games of the schedule for him to start his tenure. Ready?
I feel like it's gonna be
At,
tough.
at Florida State, home against Duquesne, at Missouri, home against Michigan State.
Yeah, that's a tough game. Hello.
It's a tough two. Yeah. Bill O'Brien, welcome back to college football, buddy.
Yeah, right.
So, I think BC will be fine. I think a bowl game is not out of the realm of possibility for them, right? But I also can see them not making a bowl game as well. Just wanted to touch upon Bill O'Brien and Boston College. He is there trying to change that program around.
Yeah, I
DJ,
think I think it should take him a couple years, but
my ACC championship, I'm going Florida State, NC State.
okay.
Florida State comes out on top. And I think I gotta be strategic here because I'm trying to think of my CFP in my head and make sure I get the numbers right.
The SEC is hard to battle, man. Having to battle through the losses the SEC is going to have to themselves this year is
Yeah.
really the hard part in the
I
college
think I think
football
one of the
playoff.
two have 4. So we got 7, I got 9, I got 2. I think both Florida State, NC State will make it to the CFP as well.
Florida State and NC State,
I
ACC
think
championship game and college
and
football playoff.
CFP. Yep. I just don't think that Miami's ready yet. I think Cam Ward is going to struggle. I never really understood the hype around him. I know he's super mobile and he has a live arm, but he never flashed like things of accuracy or anything like that. Louisville, I think the quarterback is a huge issue for them. And I think NC State, Mac Brown is just not going to get that team contending wise. And again, we talked about Clemson. I'm not super high on them because 9-4 is not going to get you to the CFP. NC State schedule at a potential 10-2, 11-1 with a big win at tennis against Tennessee or at Clemson gets them in, and their only other losses to in the championship game. I think that helps their chances significantly to make the CFP in those 12 teams.
I'm torn here, Jacob. How confident am I in Miami to get it done at Florida? I'm torn. Like this, you're live, Jacob. You are watching me struggle.
Also, DJ,
I think my hot take is good. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
I think
ahead.
you might have missed Revival, buddy.
I may have
Oh well.
missed revival.
Yeah, the big Zach Bryan thing with the fireworks and
Oh, it's okay. That's all right. I'll live to see another day. Um, I'm 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 gonna do it. Miami's gonna do it. Miami's gonna pull off this miracle of a season this year. I like the hype behind them. I do. I don't normally get on a hype train. I like NC State. I'm gonna pick Miami and Florida State rematch in the ACC championship game. Florida State's gonna come out, and NC State, Miami, and Florida State are all going to the playoffs.
well,
NC State and Miami avoid each other this year.
I hope you remember all that for when we do our 12 teams.
Yeah, it's gonna be a struggle. Miami with
Maybe.
2 losses against Florida State, depending on how Florida State does this year, because they got a pretty decent schedule. Um, Miami might be booted out just because of their loss to one team twice. So that's just what I got. I'm biting the bullet there. I'm at a toss up. If Miami doesn't get there, it's going to be NC State. But they avoid each other this season, which makes it difficult for me to pick one or the other with them. So
Well, DJ, been a long night talking ball.
hey, this is my show. This one is. Get out of here. It's been a long night, Jacob. Talking ball. Um, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. We've got NFL topics coming up. You want to just tackle that before the season starts. So please like, comment, subscribe, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of it. This has been The Deal with D and J.